and there's different ways to present it, different reasons why you're going to want to do a tour, not just COVID related, but even individuals who maybe are a little anxious about visiting a farm. I'm going to get bit by a goat or fall in a ditch, or who knows what kind of dangers they think they might befall. So it gives them an opportunity to get a little peek. It's also a way for them to, if there's a big distance, they need to travel, let's say 100 miles or more to get to your farm, being able to see a little bit about it is extremely helpful for them, and takes some of that anxiousness away from them. So I've got a couple of different tools, or different video examples and tools, different ways for expressing those things to individuals. And then we'll talk about some video options at the end, different ways for you to actually link in.
Great. Thanks. So I haven't seen anything on being able to make you co-host. So Kelli, do you want me to go ahead and start that?
Yeah, let's go ahead. It might be a little wonky just because I've got so many links in it, but I think we'll do all right, Andrea. You and I worked together before.
We'll be a good team for sure.
So our co-host Andrea Cohen is going to start the slideshow now.
Yeah, and thanks Kelli for joining us today, and for everybody for being in this session. So let me get that queued up and then get my screen shared and make sure that, is this a video or is it a PowerPoint?
It's more of a PowerPoint. So it's going to open up and you will use your arrow keys to move it forward.
Okay. All right. So here we go.
So you might want to click on the expand, the window at the bottom right, so it shows up real big.
How's that?
Perfect.
Good.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead and advance the slide. So I've already kind of given you a little introduction. This is what we're going to be talking about today, and allow some time for Q&A. Go ahead.
All right.
So the first thing you want to consider when you're getting ready to do your video is, why am I doing a video? What is the purpose for a virtual tour? And your virtual tour doesn't necessarily have to be live video. You all are probably familiar with the Ken Burns series and how he, with historic photos, zooms in and zooms out and pans, and you can create the idea of motion without actually having motion. But is your purpose to educate about a farming lifestyle, to kind of bridge that gap between our urban folks and our rural folks? Is it to make extra money for the farm? The average farm in 2017 reported $60,000 in income from agritourism ventures. That's the average in the state of Colorado in 2017. We don't have any new data yet. They only take that ag census every so many years. Is it to encourage in-person visits? You might want to do a tour of the farm to promote your upcoming concert or farm-to-table dinner, or school groups, children's groups. And then for some people, it's just literally sharing your passion. Go ahead, Andrea. So storyboards are a way to kind of get yourself started. You're going to go in and you create a little bit of a, this is what we're going to do. Cecil B. DeMille, I'm sure, did storyboards. So you create a couple of squares, you enter what you're going to do in each of the squares to kind of depict each theme and scene. And then what you need to consider with that is also things like crops. If you're going to do something with crops, they don't move around much, so you can get away with a little more detail. With animals, as we all know, they are not predictable. You cannot say goose cues in from scene left and they waddle onto the scene. Now with your friends, it's kind of a whole different story. You need a little more storyboard action going on there, in that they need to know when you want them to enter into your scene, leave your scene. Maybe they're there the whole time. Maybe they're going to play the part of a tourist as opposed to the part of just an onlooker. Also, they need to know what's going to be said so they have a reasonable response or know how to react a little bit to it. You can practice this, but having some sort of a program up front, and you'll see in some of these videos that there's a little bit of that going on where they know what they're going to do next. And that helps with your videographer, it helps with lighting, it helps with a lot of things. Okay, Andrea. So this is where we might get wonky, but hang in there with us, folks. I've got a couple of different videos here. The first one is with Mark Baltimore with Thistle Whistle Farms. And go ahead and click on that link.
Okay, and if you can't hear it, I might have to stop share to click a different button and then come back in. So just please let me know if you can hear it. I can't see anybody, so just say it out loud. Thinking about it.
Animals,
can you hear it?
Vegetables,
Yes.
herbs,
Great.
Flowers out here. And we're so happy to be here today with Mark. So thanks for having us.
My pleasure.
So if you could just tell us a little bit about what you do and where you are.
Sure. We have about 5 acres of mixed vegetables and herbs and flowers that we grow mostly for flavor. I gravitate toward the varieties that I think are the tastiest because I'm eating them myself and I want to eat the best flavored stuff I can. So I tend to grow those varieties. And that means I'm looking and trialing all sorts of different things, trying to figure out what both works and grows well here and what fits what suits my palate the best. So I grow lots of tomatoes and hot peppers and sweet peppers and other similar plants, and I also grow a lot of interesting herbs that I've been introduced to over the years that make for some fun new flavors. The other part of this farm that I really enjoy is I try to make it. I try to have the experience of the farm as important as the produce that comes from the farm. So
That's
I like
a
to
really
bring
important
in
point
kids,
he's making there.
college students, and adults who have an interest in learning about how food is grown at this scale and what's possible in the foods that we grow. So if they're interested in those old varieties or new varieties that taste different, or even foods from around the world that are unusual for the U.S. but commonplace in other places, I like to bring in people and experience that with them.
We're here on this beautiful farm.
Okay, Andrea, do you want to stop it there?
Amazing hot peppers.
Yes.
And then zoom forward to about 3 minutes, the 3 minutes on the scale. And the reason we're doing that, this is a fairly long video, and I just want you to get an idea of this interview style. And in this portion of the video, Mark's going to give you a little bit of, not a demonstration, but just talk about preparing food, which is a very common thing for video tours, is how do I make the food? How do I weave the yarn? How do I make things from these ag products? So, okay, go ahead, Andrea.
The tomatoes into tomato sauce, so any of the ones that are split or extras we can for ourselves. And I do similar things with the hot peppers. So I dry them, I make hot sauces, and I love to ferment them. A few years ago, a local cook, chef, introduced me to salt brine ferments. And it's a really wonderful old technique of preserving fruits and vegetables. It's really easy. It's similar to the way that you make sauerkraut. So it's just salt, water, and whatever vegetable you decide you want to ferment in a large crock. With the hot peppers, it's a cup of, for me, it's Celtic gray sea salt in a gallon of water. I heat it up to get the salt to dissolve in the water, cool it back down, pack a crock full of peppers and put the salt brine on the top, put a weight on the top, and let it sit for a month or so, room temperature, and then I cool it down when I want to slow down the fermentation. And I wind up with a really wonderful, rich, interesting flavored concoction of fermented hot peppers.
Okay, Andrea.
After that, if I want to keep them longer,
Okay.
So just a real quick note here. Mark Waltermeyer is not quite letting his personality come out as much as you would hope. He's a quiet sort of guy naturally, but one of the things that you need to know, he loves to take these peppers to trade shows, farmers markets, etc. And he puts out this giant jar. It's a great big, I don't know, huge jar of peppers. And, you know, these big guys walk up with their little 90-pound girlfriend, and the girlfriend eats the peppers and goes, "These are great." And the guy goes, "Blah." It's kind of funny. And Mark thinks it's hysterical. He just has a really good time with that. Let's exit out of this, Andrea.
Okay. Hang
And go
on.
back to the makeup. There you go. And then just click on the lavender picture. Now this is a totally different process for, it's got virtual tour, it's got video. This is a multi-page little booklet I created for 4 lavender farms here in the North Fork Valley. Go ahead and flip the page, Andrea.
Oh, cool.
Oh, you can see it has little sounds, and inside of this, what you might notice that the squares that have the rectangles that are fairly large, those are live videos. There's what places to do, click through straight to their website. Turn the next page, Andrea. Then we have a map in the middle, and the little bullets, the little bubbly things that are purple are links straight to their websites. Those are live. Go to the next one, Andrea. Don't you love the page turning sound? The cool thing about this particular program is you can take a PDF that's a multi-page document and you just load it up into this, and it turns it into a book for you. It doesn't do the live hard links. You have to have that in your PDF first, but it's pretty interesting. Go ahead and click on the picture on the right with the lavender field and the woman. There you go. Thank you. This one has some interesting points to it that I'll make once it's over. It's about 2 minutes long. Thank you.
Welcome to Lambourne Mountain Farmstead. I'm Carol Schott, one of the owners of the farm, and today is June 25th, and we started our lavender harvest this morning. It's lavender time.
Hi, I'm Annie Chapman, and we would love to have you guys come visit us sometime. We've got a great crew out here today picking Folgate. It's usually our first cultivar to come on. We're picking for dried culinary and also some fresh bouquets.
So we have 2 different voices
As you
going
can
on.
see, there's lots to pick.
Lots of beautiful scenery.
Bees are buzzing in the lavender. They love it too.
Okay, tell them what you're doing.
All right, so this is our paper clip collection that we use to hang all the lavender, and we found the best way to get the paper clips loose is just to shake it. They all fall on the ground.
There they are.
One of those high-tech things for
We
lavender
are in our
farms.
drying room. It's our first pick of the season, and Carol's hanging up some bunches. Pretty soon this is all going to be full of lavender. Another pretty cool thing we do here on the farm is distill our own lavender oil using a couple different stills. Today we've got our copper still out.
And then we have a smaller still that we use for other herbs and medicinals that we make hydrosol and essential oil out of.
If you guys come visit us during harvest time, you're welcome to come and see how this works. Here's our selection of lavender products. Everything's made right here on the farm. We've got bath and body stuff along with some culinary.
So they're introducing you to their
Lavender isn't the
product.
only thing we have here on the farm. We also raise Scotch Highland cattle, have projects going on like making honey, raising chickens, and we also have some pat goats that are really fun to come out and see. Another beautiful sunset here at Lambourne Mountain Farmstead. Thanks for spending the day with us.
So the other video has this, and so does this one, and the next one, the closing there, they make sure that you have their information and you can go ahead and get back in touch with them, etc. Go ahead back to our main video. Thanks, Andrea. And this last one, Andrea, when it's over, you want to close it, or the sound, it loops and it keeps making noises, and we're going to hear those noises in just a second. Go ahead, Andrea. And you might want to enlarge it.
Mm-hmm. There we go. Look how big baby. Yeah. Baby recognizes that I'm in the pen and it's nursing. Working on nursing. So Holly is a first-time mom. And sometimes they're so preoccupied with the baby, they just won't look at it all the time. He has to go to the other end to get the milk. Mom will spin, and then the baby won't get anything to eat. So by distracting the mom with some food, occupied with the food, and then the baby can nurse. And they get over this in about 3 days. You just have to work with them a little bit.
So let's put in a little insider information about being a sheep farmer. I'm a Lammy's lover.
But the baby's only 24, 27 hours old. And it already has in its mind that I have to be in the pen in order for it to nurse. Which it'll outgrow that. Just because we've done this, sheep learning about 3 times. Whatever you do, they learn. See, Mom's wanting to pay attention to her. Let me get Mom a little bit. Get her some grain. And then that's way more fun than hay. Okay, come on, baby. Ah, girl. Other end.
You'll notice at the bottom of the screen, she's inviting you to come to a website and actually participate in naming a lamb. That gets you engaged and active in the process of the video, and also gives her a chance to collect your information for marketing purposes. So yeah, go ahead and close that out, or we'll be hearing bleating lambs for the rest of the workshop or the presentation. So before I move forward, does anybody have any questions right at the moment about the videos they saw or comments? Okay, let's go ahead and move on to the next slide.
All right.
So now you've got your storyboards done and you've decided you want to create a particular type of video. You want to either do an interview style like you saw with the Voga folks, or you want to do a flip book that's a little more static and not quite so full of motion. The thing about a flip book that's good, and this was a pretty good example of it, is that if the video isn't working super great, it's kind of slow and choppy, the rest of the information is already there in the book. They can see that, they can get it, and it's in print, and they can interact with that. They're not left totally disappointed because the video at their service isn't running the way they would like it to. I think we did all right. Andrea, thank you so much for managing that video. But it is something to consider when you do create a video, is the settings, so that you know it'll run well if there is some spotty internet going on. You want to ask yourself, who do I want to have in my video? If the video is about your farm and you want to be sure that you don't have any characters in your play that are going to upstage you. Sometimes people are just naturally funny or gregarious, etc. You want to make sure that you're the star of your own show, and place them in your storyboard where you need them to be. Maybe it is just you, and that's okay as well. Wear what you normally wear. You saw that Emily and Mark Waltermeyer had pretty much what they always wear. Nothing super special. It was clean and tidy, but not necessarily special. Then Carol Schott in the Lamborn video had on just the most wonderful outfit with, LL Bean style pants and shirt and lavender. It all matched. And then her assistant, Annie, also looked very nice and tidy without looking staged and planned and really heavily made up. One thing that's really important about your video is that it needs to be an authentic voice and authentic situations. If people think that you've set this all up and it's some sort of Hollywood production, they're not going to be as interested in you. And it's really not so much about, are you creating an Academy Award winning video? It's about how engaging are you with your guests, with your viewers? Are they really paying attention because they like what you're saying? They like the little lamb crying out. They love the bees and the lavender. Whatever it is, you want to make sure that they're paying attention. If you're doing a demonstration, Mark's demonstration, he gave you a recipe, but if he demonstrates it, and we have other videos where they really show you, this is how you arrange the things to dehydrate, or in Mark's case, this is how you would chop up the peppers so that you put them in the jar. You don't put a whole pepper in the jar. I've done a large number of agritourism tours with different types of people, media, as well as guests. And if you've done them yourself, you cannot imagine how many people do not understand what goes on. I had a woman who could not get the difference between an emu and an alpaca figured out. A man who did not understand that onions grew in the ground. So what might be absolutely common knowledge to you and almost common sense may not be to the people watching your video, because they're not used to working with animals or even a hot pepper. I don't know how many of you learned the hard way that if you cut a hot pepper and then you touch your eyes or your tongue, blah, you're useless for the rest of the hour or so. Also wear items that don't have patterns in them. If you've done too many Zooms or enough Zooms and you've worn a stripy shirt or something with a weird pattern, you notice every time you move, your shirt goes on fire and electrifies and creates this problem. So make sure you wear clothing that isn't going to distract the viewer from your message. If your cast members are going to speak, if even the gregarious guy is going to speak, make sure that they know kind of what they're going to say. It's best if it's kind of random and straight from the heart, as opposed to a script. Sometimes you do need a script, but not very often. Again, it's really important to make it authentic and prepare your people for it, because perfection isn't a must, but it's really nice not to be stumbling down and you have to keep going over something because your play actors can't quite get it right. So it's okay to practice a little bit. Okay, Andrea, next slide. So here are some tips to help you make your video a little more pro-like. Use plenty of light in the situation. You want to make sure that the light is pretty even as much as possible. Taking your video more in the earlier parts of the day or the late afternoon when the sun is a little softer, if you're outside, is much better. If you talk to any photography buddies, They just love getting up and having that first light of the day, or the sun as it's going down. It casts different kinds of shadows. The light is softer, it's prettier. The light source needs to be coming at your subject from about a 45-degree angle to eliminate unwanted shadows and create the best light balance you can get. A diffused light is bigger. One of the things we found useful is just to take a big poster board that's white on one side, and you can angle it towards your light source and reflect the light onto your subject, and it creates this real soft kind of spotlight without it being a spotlight. It just diffuses the light, and it's a real cheap way to diffuse it without having to go buy special equipment. You want to keep the light source temperature even. And what I mean by that is, let's say you're in the barn and you have some little chicks under heating lamps, and you're showing that side, you're going to have an orangey glow, a warm light. And then on the other side of you, maybe there's a window coming in from the barn, a window in the barn with light coming in it. And that's going to be more of a blue light, a cool light. Both of those temperature shades hitting a person's face are going to create shadows and issues. Even your camera's going to try to adjust automatically for that and make it kind of wonky. So you want to make sure your background colors or your light colors are even in temperature. And then don't get too close to the background. Standing a little too close to the barn wall or the tree, it changes the light on you from the front. So pay attention to that as well. You want to keep your background simple and clean. Tidiness is important. It doesn't mean you have to clean your entire farm space in order to do a video, but it's more about what's going on in the background is not too complex. There's not a lot of stuff happening. Complex shadows on trees. That's another thing you want to pay attention to as you're doing your video. The sun is going to change in the process, and you want to make sure that the shadows, you adjust for those as you're doing your video. You might have to do a couple of different times, a couple of different takes on it. Too many items on the walls behind you. I've been in barns where they have a whole bunch of old fruit posters and farm equipment and just really cool stuff, but there's so much going on back here that nobody's paying attention to what's going on with your face. So make sure that you are the star of your show, or your goat is the star of the show. Whoever is speaking, and it might be a goat, we have seen that before. Let that be the thing that people shine on. Animals, I've already alluded to it. They are unpredictable, and we love them for that. Just pay attention to what the animals are doing. We have had situations, I've had videographers in the field at Avalanche Cheese had a goat herd over here in Paonia, and we had our guy out there, and he was trying to take pictures, and these goats kept coming up behind him and biting his clothing and his equipment, and so we had to kind of create a goat mob around him to just keep the goats from biting his equipment so he could do his job. So animals are something to pay attention to. The sound is important. I think you probably noticed in Carol's video for the lavender that when they first came on, you could barely hear them. And then all of a sudden it was really loud, and then it was back to hard to hear. That kind of fluctuation in the sound makes it hard for people to pay attention and stay focused on what you're talking about. So try to keep that as tight as you can. If you run into a lot of problems, you may want to just show your video and then record voiceover in the background. So that's another way to avoid having to have that fluctuation. With goat sounds and lamb bleeding, it's going to be loud, and there's nothing you can do about it. And it's somewhat charming and, again, authentic. Use more than one voice if you can on your video, especially if it's long. Like with Mark's, his overall video is 6 minutes long, so you get to hear voices and other things happening, and that gives the ear a little bit of a break. Even with Lynn's video with the lambs, you hear the animals, you hear her, and then they have a little music overload or going on as well. I did mention the voiceover versus real time. We've had some videos done where you kind of follow along, like a man in the field follows the farmer, and the farmer, you get angle shots every once in a while from the back of them, but you're following them into the farm and they point things out, and then you come back in and put the voiceover so that you don't have to worry about trying to record the voice of the farmer while that's happening. Work on your camera presence. Again, we are not expecting Academy Awards from anyone, but you do want to look like you feel confident, you're happy to be a farmer, you like your product, you're selling it. Give them a little bit of a smile when you first open up. Mark Waltermeyer, he has such a beautiful smile, and he starts his video. He's like, come on, Mark, grumpy old man, quit that. I can say that because I know Mark. He's just got such a delightful personality, and it doesn't come out in that video quite as much as I would have liked it to. It is a good video, though. It's been working real well for them. So you want calm body language. I tend to be kind of spastic. You notice me doing things with my hands. You don't want to do that. That's not the right way to go. Be as natural and as regular farmer, regular fruit grower, whatever you do, make it as much that as you can. You want to slow down when you're speaking. If you're talking too fast, you're trying to get too much out there, and maybe you need 2 videos instead of talking too fast. And even as I'm speaking to you now, I will say something, and if I crowd it with another sentence right after it, you don't even have time to think about, what did she just say? What, you heard it, you know what I said, it's not foreign, but your brain still needs a little bit of time to say, oh, she said, don't let the goats get too loud, or goats are too loud, whatever. So you want to make sure that you think about that, slow down a little. Camera angles to consider. I have shoot from the horizontal angle. That means a landscape. So you want your picture to be wider than it is tall, because that's the format that is used in almost all on-screen stuff. If you do go the other way, then you end up with this nice little column with black edges on it. And that's not very cool for the viewer to look at. Move slowly so that you might, if you move your camera too fast, it doesn't have a chance to focus. And so that can make your picture kind of goofy. So slowing down is a good thing. It's okay. You have plenty of time. And then try different points to get the best view. Don't just assume that we're going to stand here and we're going to take that picture right here. You might find that if you angle it just a little bit different, you get a better angle, better view, better sound, better everything. So play with that a little bit. Okay, Andrea. Okay, so that's a wrap. You have now created your video, your flip book, whatever you're going to do. Now, what do you do with it? It's no good to invite the neighbors over like you would your video from your vacation in Italy. You need to get it out there. So, of course, you put it on your website. You can post it on YouTube. If you haven't done that yet, it's not hard to get things posted on YouTube. There's a little bit of a learning curve, but it's not that difficult. On your website, if you don't do that, whoever does your website for you won't have any problem. You might need to change the format of your video from a particular format to what type of file it is, so that it'll play on your website well. Facebook and Instagram, of course, are places to put it. And if you don't have a Facebook page or an Instagram page, if you're in agritourism, if you're in any kind of tourism and you don't have a Facebook or some sort of online presence, people just assume you're not in business. So if you want to do tours and you want to be one of those people making $60,000, you need to have a presence online. People need to be able to find you. Your email distribution list, what I'm referring to there is your contacts. Who do you talk to? Who do you market to with your other products? And then the last one is an association like the Colorado Agritourism Association would be happy to post your video on their Facebook page and get it out that way. And there are other associations and membership groups that will do the same for you. Andrea, maybe Guidestone has similar web stuff that they do for their members. I don't know. Okay, and then last but not least, here's my contact information, and please feel free to call me or send me an email. We are going to be doing a series of videos. We're working on them now, and we'll have them out about to start launching through the winter season when you've got everything tightened down and harvested and packed away. And we are going to do various different ideas about how to do agritourism, how to get started. You're already started. How do you grow it? Those kinds of things. And Andrea, try clicking on the little horsey. I don't think he's got the hot link in him. No. Oh, yes, it does. Okay, so I knew I would get asked this question, and my original response was I have no idea, because people will say, well, what do you use to edit your video? And there are so many different ways. This site right here, this oberlo.com, it's a blog, and you can see it's best free video editing software. There's 25 of them in this piece. They go over them briefly. There's no way for me to tell you which one is the best because it's all based on your own preference, what kind of effects you want to do, your own learning curve, etc. So again, I'm coagtourism@gmail, and I'm going to open it up now for any kinds of questions. I think we have a little time. Yes.
We have 5 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing so that
Yes.
we can see each other. Thank you, Kelly.
Great. Thank you all for joining us. And does anybody have any questions?
I do. Thank you, Kelly.
Hi, Monica.
I am wondering if you know what kind of camera people used, or did many of them use just like a cell phone camera? And sort of along those lines, were they using an external microphone at all, or are they just using the same microphone they had?
The video with Mark Waltermeyer was done by a professional who actually uses his cell phone for some of that work. He does have external microphones with, some of them have the big fuzzy thing. You've seen those at concerts and whatnot. It just depends on, he does that for outside because that fuzzy thing kind of will deflect the wind a little bit and keep it from messing with you that way. But we have, the Lavender Tour has 4 different sets of videos, and all but one of them were taken with their cell phone. And then Lynn Gillespie's, her husband has just a tiny little camera. I think it was only a couple $100. It was cheaper than a cell phone, but they have really good software to do editing. And he's a video nerd, Lynn's husband, so he does a lot of that. There is some learning curve with that, but it's kind of fun. You get into it and get started. There's all kinds of crazy stuff you can do, and you'll find other applications. So you don't have to spend a lot of money. You might want to look into an external microphone. Yeah.
Hi, I have a question too. I'm sorry if you had said it and I missed it. I was distracted in the beginning of your presentation, but is there like an ideal time frame like that you find most effective for videos, like 3 minutes, 5 minutes? Is there any kind of like time frame you think is best?
Yeah, and it depends on what you're doing. 30 to 60 seconds is about the most you want to try to do if you're going to do one online for like Facebook or Instagram. Now that's not a lot of time, but one of the things you can do with that is you do a little shorty and they watch that little video and they click on it, and then they can go to your longer video. And I would try to keep most of them to around 3 minutes. Mark Waltermeyer's was 6 minutes long, and he covered a lot of things, so it was interesting. But that's a long time to expect somebody to sit and watch a video unless they're really interested. You know, how do I make brined chili peppers? Then I might watch and be totally engaged. Lynn Gillespie has lambing videos that take you through the whole thing, and it can be 10, 15 minutes long. And that's after they've edited it. And unless you're really wanting to be part of that whole process, that might be too much. So for marketing and promotion purposes, I would say 2 minutes and less.
Great, thank you.
Great. We just have one more minute.
Okay.
Does anybody have any other questions? I know I sure could have used some of that advice before I did the video for the Hallmark Ranch Alpaca Tour yesterday, for yesterday's event. I would do it a little differently now.
Yeah.
Thanks to your advice.
So let us know, send me an email if you're interested at all in any further workshops. I talked to the videographers that I worked with to get some of my facts and tips, and they're interested in putting on something that's more like 2 hours long and a really more intensive how-to and some examples, and don't let the goat bite you in the butt type of example. So feel free to contact us and we'll let you know. Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much, Kelly. So I believe we'll be seeing a little box come up in a minute, or we will be, that you can click to say, go back to the main room.